What's up, everyone? Welcome to a new series where I am going to be talking to the musicians in my life. I'm still a little bit undecided on what I'm going to call this series, but I'll figure that out as it goes on. I've always wanted to do this because musicians are pretty interesting people. I mean, we all have stories. We all love to talk about those stories. So why wouldn't I talk to musicians about their stories? With everyone I talk to in this series, we're going to cover kind of three main things. What originally made them get into music and fall in love with it, where they are now, and how they got there. And also, I'm going to ask a couple kind of deep questions about music itself and see how they respond to that. My first guest is a good friend of mine. He's my mixing engineer who mixed my recent EP, which is coming out over the next little while, so stay tuned for that. His name is Charles Henry-Volk, and he is a mixing wizard, but I'll let him introduce himself, so let's get right into it. Hey, how's it going?
I'm good, man. How are you doing?
Yeah, not bad at all. So I'm here today with Charles Henry-Volk. We've worked together on my recent EP. Charles has a very interesting story, and so I wanted to share it with you. So I want to just start off just giving it like a brief overview in your words of who you are as a musician and how you got there.
Sure, man. Yeah. Well, so I'm Charles. I'm a mixing engineer from the UK. I'm also a drummer. Like I've been a drummer since I was about 13. I'm 26 now. Now I'm working mainly in pop and rock styles in all their wonderful various forms, and then occasionally, just for fun, I like to throw something weird in, like a massive a cappella project or an indie folk album. Just
Yeah.
like something that's like a little bit different for me, but I still really love doing.
I, as a musician, am someone who I don't like confining myself to a genre. As you know, having worked on my songs, they kind of go wherever I feel like the song takes me. And
Absolutely.
so I know that I've seen from the work that you've done that's definitely something for you as well. But you started off, if I recall, more in like rock and metal, and then you've kind of since then transitioned into more different genres. So like, talk me through that.
Yeah. So after I graduated in 2018, I graduated from Berklee fall of 2018, and most of my friends and most of the music I was doing then, like with my own band, was in the realm of like rock and metal and like prog metal kind of styles. That said, even then and before then, like for the whole life, I've been into whatever music I can really get my hands on or whatever I'm subjected to. So I was doing metal and a lot of my friends were doing metal. So I kind of picked up on what they were doing. And that I just kind of fell into like the metal mixing genre because I loved it
Mhm.
and most of my friends were doing it. So then I kind of picked up on that. I've always kind of found in terms of production that like metal music at the time was getting a bit stale. Now it's a little bit of a different story where you got bands like Bring Me the Horizon who are really carrying it forward and they collaborate with whoever they want, which I think is amazing.
Right.
Um, and I decided no, I want to like go into like the pop genre because I find that more inspirational. That
Mm.
was kind of like the main focus, and then I kind of found a sort of a love for like indie and country and like Americana music as well, and folk music.
Right.
Um, and I kind of just fell in love with that sound as well. I guess there was a time in my life where I really just liked the quiet things as well as like the really loud stuff too. But if you were to look at my iTunes now, you see I've got
Right.
bands like Arch Enemy, like death metal, like
Yeah. Yeah.
Slipknot, and then also like Joss Stone, Bruno Mars, and Charlie Puth. Then I've just got into like the latest thing I've been listening to right now is Calvin Harris's new wing of like the Funk Bounces album he's got out.
I wanted to ask specifically. So you said like during kind of your college days, that's when you did kind of you focused a lot on prog metal, prog rock. Was that so? What exactly did you study at Berklee?
So I was doing the major contemporary writing and production, CWP for short, where it was like kind of like the producers major. So like we learned to write and produce in like sort of, various styles and like larger and larger ensembles. So we'd start with maybe like a small band with a horn section, and then the final thing would be like writing for like a small studio orchestra.
Oh, wow.
Um, yeah, that was an amazing experience I'll never forget.
Yeah,
And really like the metal side of things, that was kind of just like my own
that was your own thing.
thing. Like,
Okay. Yeah.
outside of classes, like I was playing a lot of metal, but in terms of like writing and what I was doing for classes, I was really experimenting. Like I was really into Justin Timberlake at the time, and so um, I was like trying to do like arrangements of his song. I did an arrangement of a Mark Ronson tune.
Oh, nice.
It was off the Uptown Special album. It's called In Case of Fire.
Okay.
Um, and that's a really cool song as well. It's just like songs that I loved, and then metal was kind of like where I could sort of write my own stuff and kind of explore that side of me as well.
Right. So you kind of briefly touched on this earlier, but because you mentioned sort of the reason you started moving away a bit from the metal is was like the production side. You found it was getting stale production wise. So do you think, I guess, like your background in producing is what influenced you to start looking to start expanding, I guess, genre wise in music?
Um,
Like, did it give you
I,
maybe an appreciation for like elements of other genres?
Absolutely. Like I've always been curious about other genres, just trying to make it, and like to an extent,
Yeah.
like what I was doing in classes helped as well, like electronic writing and production, and uh, like writing for different ensembles. That definitely like expanded my horizons.
And I know just for me, like I guess I don't know what genre I really started off in, but like I when I was younger, I kind of listened to just like what my parents listened to, and
Hmm.
I guess I was always told to not like pop music. That was kind of the big thing.
Hmm.
But then it really helped when I got into like music more and
Hmm.
production, especially for pop production. It helped me kind of I'd listen to a pop song. I'd be like, well, I don't really connect with it that much because that's just not that doesn't tend to be what I connect with. But sometimes like I can really appreciate those production choices. Like that's cool.
Right.
So
That's
that
like
changed things for me.
what you said there, like appreciation. That's really kind of what I'm getting at.
Right.
Um, to give you an example, like one thing I still don't really like, a genre of music I don't really like, is kind of the more modern. I don't want to say like bebop jazz because I actually kind of like bebop jazz, but kind of like it's a modern like avant-garde kind of jazz.
Okay.
And to me, at
Yeah.
the time, like a few years ago, that kind of music was like John Coltrane, basically.
Right. Right.
I just couldn't get behind like I had no idea what was going on. Like it just seemed like solos and kind of everything I hated about like school jazz bands,
Hmm.
especially like college jazz bands, actually, especially
Right.
Berklee jazz bands,
Right.
where like everyone takes a
Yeah.
solo and there's like no structure to the solo and it lasts forever, like
Okay. Yeah.
until you keep playing them and then you get better, obviously. But that to me, that's all I could hear. Like with the risk of sounding like an old fogey, it's like to me it was literally just like noise.
Right.
Um,
Right.
but then I took like an advanced harmonic concepts class because I was just really interested in harmony, and we were studying John Coltrane, and when I found out, I was like,
Right.
oh shit.
Well, yeah. 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 No,
um,
I get that.
but yeah, like once you start breaking it down and you actually realize, okay, like here's why he's doing these things, and like
Mhm.
you're sort of breaking it down to its nuts and bolts, it got really interesting, and I was like, oh no, okay, like I understand this now, and like I understand the context of what it's in, and like John Coltrane and Chick Corea were the two that we were studying.
Mhm.
Um, so like to give you another example, country music. I used to really not like country music because my vision of it was like bro country.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
I went to a festival here called Black Deer Festival, and that I think I told you about the band, the Wandering Hearts.
I
They
think you did. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, like I saw them live, and just like that experience was incredible. I think what I love about country music, and especially I guess like not country in the sense of bro, but
Yeah.
uh, like actual country music.
Like non-commercial kind of
Yeah,
country music. That if that's
yeah.
yeah, that's how I think of it at least. Yeah.
What I love about that is that there's a real. It feels like even if it's like a big band and there's a big sound, it still feels a lot more intimate, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah.
And
No, absolutely. Like yeah, there
there's
is.
that connection between the band and the
Yeah.
audience.
In one of my classes, it was like a critical thinking about music class. We talked a bit about like it was Bob Dylan, wasn't it? Yeah, I think you've probably heard about this. There was one like famous performance. I think again, I think it was Bob Dylan, where he played an electric guitar and everyone freaked out. It was him or one of those other kind of like classic singer songwriter types, right? Where like they played
Yeah.
acoustically, and I guess their whole shtick was that connection. It was all very intimate, very kind of like this kind of
Mm.
liveness of it. And yeah, he played with an electric guitar and everyone freaked out. That's something that's always interested me is this I guess the way people perceive connection in music,
Yeah.
where things that are commercialized, digital, overproduced, those are things that don't connect. Whereas the closer you get to basically you playing in a room with someone with no technology getting in the way, that's that's connection. And while that, especially I'm in a classical music program, that's the prevailing idea because there's all this emphasis on on virtuosity and stuff, and performance. But I find especially, and I you'd be an interesting case for this because you went to a prestigious music school, but also you do work as a producer, and you do your work digitally manipulating things. But I don't think you would say that you're sucking the life out of music, right? So
I mean, if I'm doing my job right, then
yeah, I wouldn't say you were either. But yeah, well, I guess, have you thought about this idea? I've kind of just rambled here, but have you thought about this idea about the role that emerging technologies in music have in either disconnecting the artist and the listener or bringing them closer together?
I suppose like I guess like we all think about it to some extent.
Yeah.
Whether like consciously thinking about it as we're doing now, or maybe like unconsciously while we're doing something else. Definitely like as part of like what I do with mixing, I'm always trying to separate myself from the song in some degree. Like in one way I do that is by taking regular breaks so that I'm always like coming at it fresh and trying to be like as close to like the consumer era as possible, so that it always feels like I'm never losing the song, because it can be so easy to, as you said, just get lost in it and then remove all the humanness out of it.
Yeah.
And trying to make it like perfect, quote unquote. Something you said earlier just reminded me of like, I think it's like the connection between like the song and the audience, and like maybe digitalizing things or overproducing, taking that away. I think in some respects I can understand why, but I think as well it depends on the context of where that music is played and how it's played. Like say for example, I don't know, like like EDM, right? You can't really get any more digital than that.
That is true. Yeah.
So it literally has electronic in the title. No, but so I suppose like it's like the difference between seeing a movie on Netflix and then going to see it in an IMAX.
Right.
You know what I mean? Right. Where it's like if you're listening to it on like a laptop, or I don't know, your headphones, for example, that's connects to you in some way. But then if you go listen to that same song in a club,
Right.
That's like being in IMAX, and that connection between people all in the club and they're dancing together and just having the time of their lives, just losing themselves to the music.
True.
That I think that in a way is like its own kind of connection, and that's what makes that music special. And that has its own thing. I don't think many other genres have that kind of thing. If you try and do the same thing with like playing like I don't know, like a metal tune in a club, then it maybe there'll be an audience for it if you're doing like a like a metal night at a club or something.
Right.
But then again, rock and metal, that has a place at festivals and live shows. Which is kind of where a lot of other genres get their kind of bigger connection at festivals or something.
Yeah, that's so true. I hadn't thought about it that way, but yeah, there's these different ways to connect, and I guess like that sort of acoustic, intimate vibe, like that's one way of connection, and I guess it's always kind of traditionally been the way. I guess before technologies emerged, there was no other way. But then
I suppose like if you take the example of an acoustic one, like if you think like an acoustic show, you think maybe small audience, it's an intimate show, or I guess on the opposite, it would be like like John Mayer with him and his guitar doing like an arena tour. That would be like the bigger example,
right?
But I suppose like if you put something out of place, if it works well, then it could also turn out to be something really, really cool. Like imagine trying to hold like an acoustic show with just like
in a club,
like a songwriter and a guitar in a club, like holding it at that venue or something, and just like seeing how that would work.
Yeah, I'm gonna say the club goers wouldn't be a huge fan of that, but
maybe you just get different kinds of club goers, or it could be like an event, like a night.
I would go to that club. Like I don't club.
I know you would.
Yeah, yeah, I know that. No, like my friends know that I'll go to a bar. I won't go to a club. It's just not my scene, right? Like I don't like dancing. I don't connect in that way. But
very
if there was an indie folk club, I'd probably turn up. Let's switch up a bit here. We're gonna go very reverse chronologically. So I want to talk a bit before we went to Berklee. I mean, the whole decision for me about like picking what to do at university, that was a tough one, and I am hoping that some people who are watching this might also be around that age and kind of deciding. And so, yeah. So what made you decide that you like? Did at that point when you went to Berklee, were you 100% like, I'm doing music, this is what I'm doing, or was there, was it a bit more of a difficult process to decide?
I mean, I've been like, music's been a part of my life. It's a bit of a cliche answer to say music's been a part of my life since as long as I can remember, but it's true. Although actually, I will say it wasn't. This sounds so silly. It wasn't my original ambition. When I was a kid, I actually wanted to be an actor.
Okay, yeah.
And then I was really into like films and TV, and
Right.
I really liked doing drama at school. And then when it came time to do my GCSEs, which I don't know what the equivalent would be in the States of North America.
Really know either.
If anyone in like the non-Europe English world is watching or listening, Google it. Google GCSEs.
I'm not gonna try to explain it because I don't know.
Yeah, it's like the exams you do in the middle of high school. It's kind of
is that the same as like A levels? Because I always hear you guys.
A levels you'll do at the end. Depends on the school you'll go to. That's what you do at the end.
Okay, so GCSEs you do that in like grade 10.
If I don't know what grade 10 is.
Oh, so. you don't even have.
I'd say I'd be like
year 9,
like 16, like around like 16.
Okay,
that's
so like grade 10 and grade 11 kind of thing. Okay, yeah. All right.
Okay, but when it came time to do GCSEs, and like we were allowed. We had to do certain subjects, like core ones, and then we were given 4 options for like subjects that we wanted to do. And I believe I chose like music, definitely, and I wanted to choose drama, and then I also did like a couple of languages, like French and German, I think. And at the time, so they were like, "Oh, if you do 2 creative subjects, that's going to be like a lot of work on your plate. And you sure you want to do that?" And so they were kind of like making me pick one, and I was like,
"Oh, okay."
Okay. But I did pick music because I just felt like a stronger affinity towards it, and like I just naturally gravitated towards it. And then I replaced drama with physics, and so I went on with that. And then I did really crappy in physics, but I still loved physics.
Was it what did they mean like so doing 2 arts GCSEs? That was
it was
much work. Did they just not want you doing it, or like what
I don't know, man.
Okay.
Like I think they were just like giving me a hard time, and I didn't really know any better. I didn't really want to like push against the grain or something.
Yeah.
Now I would have just been like, oh, I want to do that. But no, like actually I did end up getting back involved with drama, because in my final year at high school I was musical director for the school play, and then so I got back in that way.
Yeah, you're right. Okay, yeah, cool.
And that was actually a really fun time. We did we did Much Ado About Nothing by William Shakespeare, but set in a modern day British music festival.
Oh, wait. So what kind of music did you do for that?
We did like a bunch of stuff, like mainly like pop songs that were kind of popular ones. Like we did our own version of Viva La Vida. We did Don't Stop Me Now at the end. It was all like the original like Shakespeare play, and then we would just be like in the background, like the band on stage, like playing music like between certain scenes, or like to give like context to certain things, like because it was all set at a music festival, so that there would be music going on all the time.
I did a similar thing. I did music for a play when I was in grade 11 or 12, like near the end of high school. Because I know you don't have those grades. I thoroughly enjoyed that, so that's cool to hear that you did that as well. Did you ever do musical theater?
I guess not seriously. Like I would have been like really young at the time,
right?
So I can't say I did musical theater, but I enjoyed singing in shows when I was really young.
Did you do pantos?
Oh no, we didn't do any pantos. I've seen a panto though. I saw Aladdin with Ian McKellen, and he was a special guest.
Oh wow, okay, well that was quite the panto. Yeah, I'm sure I've seen him live once. Waiting for Godot, him and Patrick Stewart. That's so cool. Good, so good. I was like 10 though, so I didn't get it. So, so continue the story, right?
Basically, like I took music through to end of high school, and then I took a year off, like a gap year, where I just did work experience, and then I was around 18, so a lot of things happened in that year. It was very exciting. Yeah, like I turned 18, I passed my driving test, and then I got into Berklee because I was really excited about that. And then that same year, I went off to Berklee, and I went to Berklee to do the 5-week program in 2012, and then I ended up going to Berklee full time in 2015. Okay. So, like before 2012, I didn't really know what it was. Like I wasn't aware they were like schools for music.
Right.
I just
Okay.
thought like, oh, like, you graduate and then you just do music, right?
Yeah.
um, Little did I know, but no, like since doing the 5 foot program in 2012, and that was kind of like the moment where I was like, my mind was expanding, and then I started getting into like, oh, I don't know. I guess like going through a phase in teenage years, like I would put eyeliner on and I would like wear a choker and have like black nail polish and stuff.
I
Uh,
I cannot
like
picture that.
America freed me
Oh my
in
gosh.
some
Wait.
kind of weird twist of fate. America freed the UK guy.
That's I'm trying to imagine you dressed like that. I can't. I
I'll
can't do
send you
it.
some pictures sometime. It is really quite funny.
Yeah, I would love to see that. That's fantastic.
The funniest thing though is that I didn't know there was like a hair salon or a barber's around the corner from the dorms, and so I just let my hair grow out. I think they call it like a
Oh
Jufro or something. It was
oh yeah.
it was nuts. Like at the time, I was like, yeah, this is cool, but now I was like,
Yeah.
God damn it, man! Like you look ridiculous. And yeah, so like I guess I've always wanted to do music to some extent, like to summarize, I guess.
Yeah.
And then at some point, I was like, yeah, you know what, screw it, I'm just gonna do this. And then nothing else really. Like I had other interests, but nothing that could like carry me through life as well as music could.
Yeah. So I guess that's a good point to transition. So to the after Berkeley era. So right now, I take so the bulk of your work is in mixing, and I guess yeah. So that's where you are now. So kind of I guess describe like in an average week, like what sort of work are you doing like each day?
So a lot of the work I'm doing now is focused on like building up my business and like
Mhm.
acquiring more clients. And right now I'm focusing on like getting a move to London later this year together,
Right.
and like making that work.
So
So
right, because right now you're in Kent, right? So
yes,
yeah, near
yeah,
London. I
yeah.
know
It's
I
like
know my UK.
if anyone here doesn't know the UK, Kent is like the most southeasterly place you can go in the UK, and then London is like just a little more inland.
Yeah, a little bit up there. Yeah. Okay, cool.
Yeah. Um, so most of it's based around that, like sourcing artists and producers that I feel like I'd like to work with, and then just like messaging loads and loads of people. Uh, and it's not like in some respects it's like cold outreach, but the difference is like it's all people that I'd actually really generally like to work with because I really like their music.
Right. So talk me through that process. This is a big reason why I wanted to do this series is for me
Mm.
to learn, because yeah, this is work that I want to do, and I'm sure a lot of people who are watching or listening are also kind of wanting to, yeah, to reach out to more people, work with more artists. So what is your process for, I guess, figuring out the people you want to work with, finding them, and then and messaging them? Yeah, talk me through that process.
Yeah, I mean, I should preface this by saying like I can't take the credit for the method that I'm using because
I
like I've learned it from other people, and
yeah.
I'm in a business group with a coach called Vincent Hervey, and he's amazing, and that group is awesome. They've been the saving grace of my life this past year, and it's
Yeah.
been fantastic.
Awesome.
And so what I do is I go on Spotify. That's like my main place I source artists. And then my friend Jamie showed me this really cool thing. Maybe I've told you about this already with like it's like the Spotify trick. So you make a playlist on Spotify. You can make it private or public. No one really cares. But you kind of populate it with first of all like stuff that you've done before that's released and you want to do more of it. And also you go on Spotify and you like add songs and artists that you like, have like the kind of amount of monthly listeners that you'd like to be like those kind of artists that you're reaching out to. And you populate it with that and you kind of just build like this sort of vibe in this playlist. I have 3 for different kinds of music. But then at the bottom of each one, there's like a recommended section, like based on what's in this
Yeah,
playlist,
yeah.
here are additional ones. And it's like you can keep hitting refresh and you can strengthen the algorithm by adding those songs to your playlist. And then like it's like a never ending stream of people to
That's
hit up and
that's so
music to
smart.
find.
Yeah, because well,
Yeah.
because I use that to build playlists that I like to listen to. But that's a very smart way to
Isn't it?
this work.
Like I can say
Yeah,
that because I didn't come up with it. I learned it from someone else, and then
yeah,
he learned it from
that's
someone else, and I
awesome.
found out who that first person was. So
Yeah, it gets passed down. Yeah, no,
yeah,
that's great. Is that where you find the majority of the people you work with?
yeah,
Yeah,
that's where I find all of them.
and
Um,
so and then you kind of just like cold reach out to them after
yeah, so
that.
like I have a template in Notion, just like a good app for like organizing all your stuff, and like in there it saves like their Instagram and their Spotify, and then I can just like at my leisure or whenever, go through and just like message those people.
Right.
And and we just see where it goes. The main thing is that I want to make my intentions known from the
Yeah.
start, so I don't just like someone else in the DMs.
Yeah.
But the main thing is I do want to just get to know the person and see if like we'd be on like a good vibe together.
Yeah. So the way that you reached out to me, I think we knew each other through Harley, right?
Mm,
Yeah. So
yeah.
Harley is another person who I would like to get on this on this little series here, but he's a cellist. I think like he just reached out to me on Instagram, and I think we started following each other through him, and then I think you reached out to me. But yeah, for what I recall, and like the reason, because I think every artist gets constant like weird scam DMs of like,
Yeah.
hey, I want to work with you, and then you click on their account and they're like a forex trader, and you're like, why do you want to work with me? That makes like, or they're always organic Spotify algorithmic growth. And so, anyways, but point being, you get a lot of these messages.
Yeah.
I tend to ignore them. It helped that I already knew who you were and that you were a real person. But I think generally, I was keen to work with you because you seemed to have a genuine interest in what I was doing, and you came across as I said, as a human being, which is helpful. How do you differentiate yourself, make yourself stand out? It's not hard when you're competing with bots, but
Well, that's basically the crux of it. I understand. Cold outreach has its drawbacks. Mainly that you're competing with a lot of people who are also doing the same thing.
Yeah.
And the main differentiator is that, like, even though I sort of made my intention clear at the beginning, of like, yeah, I'm interested in working with you, or I would be if we went ahead. Like the real reason I'm reaching out is because like it originates from Spotify, and the first thing I know about this person is that, oh, their music spoke to me, and I like it, so I want to find out more about them.
Right.
And it comes from that place. And even if like it takes a while for us to end up working together, or it doesn't happen at all, I'm still like grateful and happy to be able to speak to that person and know them.
Yeah.
Obviously, like I'm hoping that we do get to work together, but it's never like the intention. It's always to just find out more about them. Because on the opposite side of things, they could just be a dick, and I don't want to work with them at all. And I've been.
That's true. I have one more kind of career question to ask, and then I got one deep question about music, and then I think we'll leave it there. Got already talked about a lot of really cool stuff, but I guess just a bit. So we've talked about your days studying, and then we've talked about kind of where you are now. And I just want to hear a bit more about, I guess, like the process of getting there. Because you right now you do music full time, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I guess coming out of Berklee, how long did it take to get there? What were, I guess, like the main difficulties in that process? Yeah, just talk me through it a bit, I guess.
Yeah. I've told this story like of what happened after Berklee a few times, and I always tend to ramble on, so I'll try and keep it like brief. Like the basis of it is like, so after Berklee, it was like December 2018 is when I graduated, and then for 6 months after that, like between like 5 or 6 months, I spent that unemployed and thinking like, oh my god, I was having an existential crisis. Like, I don't know what I'm doing with my life. Like, I can't like go back to the States because of like my OPT, and it's hard to find a place to live that I can afford, and then also find somewhere that I can get paid, and all that kind of stuff. I was like, and then I thought, I'll just stay in the UK because it's here. London's near me. Like, the UK is a hub, so I'm gonna stay here and just do with that. And I realized I'm in a very lucky position right now. Is I'm still living at home, and working from home, and I don't have any bills, so I'm using this time right now to save up so I can move to London and be uncomfortable and do that. So and I'm really looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to being uncomfortable. Maybe that's like something we can touch on another time because it's a whole topic for itself.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But so yeah, I spent 6 months unemployed and like scared about life and thinking that I'd wasted the last 3.5 years of my life doing a music degree.
I feel like that's a pretty common feeling, honestly. Like, there's so many positives to studying music, but it's so often it just doesn't prepare you for what you're going to do. And I mean, I haven't finished studying music, but I'm already worrying about that because I know that it's difficult. It doesn't just directly lead you into something.
Absolutely, and it's kind of that what you just said is like kind of tied into like what came next, and like you made a good point there, and I'll come back to it at the end of it. So like during college in the summers, I was a teaching assistant at a school called Super Jam, Music and Media Education. Yeah, SUPA Jam.
Super jam.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice.
And it was a really cool place to work because many of the students, actually, lots of students, like young adults, 16 to 25-year-olds, and they kind of fallen out of formal education, and like it wasn't working for them, or they had like bad home lives, or the other shit going on in their lives that just meant their education, like, it wasn't happening for them. And so they would come to us, or they would get sent to us through like councils and whatever. I wasn't in admissions, so I don't really know how it works. I was a teaching assistant there, and like we would kind of give them like a fresh start through music. You know, some of these kids didn't have a qualification to their name,
Right.
so like along with like it was like a music diploma from a company called Rock School, we would teach their like music business diploma.
Was Jack Black teaching there?
I wish Jack Black was teaching. Yeah, I suppose like anyone who teaches music has that school of rock fantasy.
I figure. I mean, come on, right? Yeah.
But yeah, like, so long story short, I taught there for a bit during the summers, and then after the 6 months of being unemployed and scared for my life, I went back to them because I'd known Nick and David, the founders, for years. Like since I was 16, I did my first work experience with them.
Right.
And like they supported me and like always like believed in what I wanted to do. So I worked with them. I was a teacher assistant for a year, and then I went on to become a junior teacher. And I was a junior teacher at the time when like the first lockdown happened in COVID.
Okay.
And like a new base had just opened. Like their main one was in a place called Swanley, and so this new one opened in Canterbury. And just like a lot of stuff like came together to do with the pandemic, and like a lot of new stuff that I was figuring out as a teacher, and kind of all the responsibilities that came with that. That was part of the reason I ended up leaving. I loved the actual teaching part, and I felt like I didn't really like have enough time to devote to just doing that.
Right.
And so I love teaching, but not like being a teacher. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay.
Like if I was going to be a teacher again, I'd want to do it on my own terms and kind of maybe do it privately. And then the other reason I left was that one of my best friends, Joao Brocanelli, whose first EP I produced and mixed, and then we did his follow-up single as well. He said something to me that I never really forgot. And he said, because we were friends at Berklee, and he said, you know what, like Charles, he kind of like told me what to do without telling me what to do.
Right.
Like I saw a lot of people graduate Berklee like with the thing that they wanted to graduate in, and then they went off and did something that wasn't what they graduated in. Right. And they didn't really come back to what they graduated in. They just kind of stayed there. And in some respects, that's fine because, you know, life, you don't really know where life's going to take you.
Yeah.
So if you find happiness doing that other thing, then great. But it's kind of like, just when he said that, it sort of made me think like, if I don't leave this now and do what I want to do, which is music production and mixing, then I'm like never going to.
Yeah. No, it's like, I guess when you get too comfortable in something, then it, you know, I guess like the risks kind of outweigh the possible benefits when you're like, you know, you can keep doing this, and you know, you're like, well, then why would I take the risk to do what I love? But I guess that, I mean, it's a great thing that you did, because my EP sounds really cool in my opinion, and I think a lot of that's thanks to you. So yeah, that's I'm glad you went back into mixing and production because yeah.
Well, I mean, I was a bit naive at first. I was a bit naive to think I could go from full-time salary position to freelancing with 0 clients and kind of expect to be okay.
Yeah, that's how it goes, right?
I guess that touches on like the struggles part of the question that you alluded to as well.
Right. Yeah.
Because that shift, like I was already starting mixing at the time for other people, namely my friends, and like the process was really slow because I didn't have any time to do anything mixing wise, like most of it was just dedicated to what I had to do as a teacher.
Mhm.
So like things would take forever to get done, and
Yeah.
it was all on my end, and I didn't like that. It really bugs me.
Yeah.
But uh, that transition from like having a boss and working for something suddenly to like working for myself, that was the biggest shock to the system.
Right. Right.
Like because I was so used to like going through college or like going through school, like there's people who are higher than me and I have to like just get good grades, and or when I had a job it was like I'd be working under a boss. I mean, there was always like someone higher up that I could like work like under. And
Right.
then when you
Right.
make the shift to that person is now
On your own
yourself and you're your own
terms.
boss.
Yeah.
Exactly. That was like, oh, whoa, I need to like rethink how I do my whole life.
Did you struggle with motivation there? Because I know like
Oh yeah.
yeah, it's hard. Like I mean, I'm doing in a in a large way. I'm doing kind of a similar thing right now. I'm trying to yeah to improve what I do and become more successful at it. And it's hard because I don't the benchmarks aren't really there. You kind of make your own,
Mm,
and which is awesome, but also yeah, sometimes it's difficult to motivate yourself.
absolutely. And like um for like like 2 years ago, like so 2020 and 2021, like that big shift happened and like a lot of stuff like a lot of personal stuff happened in my life, and it gave me like a huge like shot of like
Right.
bringing my self confidence like way down.
Mm,
Um, and like all through college, I was like kind of like a pretty confident person, and like I wanted it. Maybe in some respects, it was like a front as well because I wanted to appear confident.
right. Well, I
So
mean, Berkeley students,
I mean, like it might, but then it's not just that, but like when you're in music as well, you have to have some kind of ego because you're in
oh yeah,
music.
oh yeah.
Like
It's a
no one really
necessity.
wants to work with someone who's not really sure of themselves.
To finish up, like, yeah, when did you start getting more clients? How did you start that process? Well, actually, specifically, when did you start moving away from? Because like I'm doing a bit of production work right now, and I'm doing it so far exclusively for people that I know.
Mhm.
When did you start? When did you start moving away from just mixing and producing for your friends, and then because I feel like that's kind of a big shift, right? Is when you actually start having clients you don't originally know. So how did that start for you, and when did that start?
Um, I guess like it first started when I produced a mix, like a guy called Christopher George, and then his first single called All the Way for the Win, which was kind of a different route for me because it was kind of like funky pop, kind of like
Okay.
live band kind of stuff, and it was really fun actually. I got a lot of fun doing that. Um, and that I think was like 2021, so around the start of that year,
Okay.
and that was the kind of first one I did that was for someone I didn't know.
Right.
Um, then it was really up until like beginning of this year, sort of end of last year, when I joined like the group I mentioned before, the business group with Vincent and the other
Mhm.
like engineers and producers. I joined them in October last year, and then that kind of sort of helped me sort of kickstart making my business work.
Right.
Well, making me work for my business, actually, I should say, and try to make it happen. Because I realized, so like after spending so long, kind of really actually very depressed,
Mhm.
and kind of floundering, really like not really knowing where I wanted to go and what I wanted to do definitively.
Right.
I realized, okay, if I'm going to do this, if I'm going to do freelancing full time, I need help, and that
Right.
was the biggest thing, sort of roadblock for me to get over was just asking for help. I guess like I didn't really mean to go so much into like the mental health side of things, but I do feel
Mhm.
it is important, especially like coming out of like lockdown and COVID. I think it's through that time people have been a lot more open to talking about mental health, and it's become a
Yeah.
lot more of like a relevant thing,
One of the silver linings of
especially
that whole
among
period.
it's yeah, exactly. Um, I had a really interesting call uh, with an engineer and producer mixer called Seth Munson the other day, and like he's the nicest dude ever, and he gave me a lot of like really good advice, and we talked about like some of this stuff as well.
Mhm.
Um, and something I said to him because he's also like part of the group that I'm in is that what I really love about being in the group, and actually what I love about uh, sort of like looking up to people who I like I want to be as successful as them, is that we all have like the same issues to some degree. Well, that's
Right,
some
right.
like we're all going through very similar things. Like we have like a Discord, and there's a channel in there called Your Mental Breakdown, and we share what we're going through and our feelings, and then we support each
Right,
other that way. And like I'm in the group, I'm sort of like earliest at starting my business, like
right.
the earliest points, and then there's people who have been doing it for ages and they're already making good money and they're good like clients and stuff, and they're working on their own goals and whatever. But
Mm.
when you get those people putting something in there and talking through like what they're going through, and me as someone who's like kind of really starting out in my like making my business grow,
Yeah,
at least like since the like end of last year, to read that and kind of see my own struggles reflected in that as well and how similar they actually are, it's really humbling
right.
because, you know, I guess like to some degree, when you're like early on in your career, you look to these more successful people and you think like, well, what could be wrong? Like, what
Right,
could
yeah.
possibly be wrong? That like, what kind of struggles could they be having? Like, they're making it work,
Yeah.
but it's really not the case. And my absolute like best friend Audrey, she has a producer called Ryan West, and she was telling me the other day that he was saying something similar, like the higher up you get in the music industry, like the nicer the people get, because
Interesting.
they all kind of know where we all came from. Like we came from like the bottom, and then they've made their way to the top, so they know what it's
Right,
like to do
right.
that, and they're a lot more like accepting and nice.
Yeah. So my last question, I'm going to ask everyone in the series this question. It's not particularly related to what we were just talking to, but it's a deep question about music itself. And there's many ways to interpret it. I'm not going to tell you how to interpret it because I want you to interpret it how you want.
That's what you're doing
um,
here.
so very, very, very simple question: Is music universal?
Very simple answer. Yes.
Okay, explain. First of all, explain
um,
what because that question can mean different things. So what do you think it means, and then explain your answer from there.
I mean, like, I guess the first thing I think of is, I guess, do people get something from music?
Mhm.
That's kind of how I interpret it, and like the first comes to my mind.
Right.
For musicians, it's easy. Like, yes, we get like a lot of fulfillment and joy, and music helps us work through even like the darkest times in our lives, because it's like we have a friend in the artist and what their song is about, and they're going through something similar, and we can latch onto that.
Mhm.
And even in like really happy moments as well, even if it's just like this is a club song, we're going to be dancing. Like earlier on, we were talking about EDM, and people in the
Yeah.
club, they're all coming together like that way. They're all
Yeah.
getting something in that sense of community through EDM music. So they're getting stuff from that, and they're not even musicians,
Yeah.
most of them. Um, and then even for like non-musicians, they get something from it as well. Like they get that connection,
Yeah.
and like I guess like that's all people. Musicians, they delve a bit deeper because they find interest and like fulfillment in analyzing it and tearing it apart and playing covers of it on YouTube and like showing their friends and building a community that way.
Yeah.
I suppose like I've only known like a couple of people, and I think they were students of mine, who didn't want to do music as a career, like at all. They
Mhm.
didn't want to do it. Um, and I think even if they didn't really express it, I think they still got something from music.
Yeah.
Like, again, it's that connection thing. I guess like it all
Mhm.
comes back to that. So maybe I'm doing a long-winded way of saying we can all
Yeah.
connect to it in different ways, and we all build our own community around music and the type of music that we listen to and analyze and study and produce and mix, and we all build a community around that.
Mhm.
So yeah, like people like just get a lot of different things from music. So what was it? It does music. What was the question again?
Is music universal?
Is music universal? Um, so I, in a way of like getting something from it and building a community, I would say yes.
Yeah. Awesome. I'm not gonna elaborate or prod. My whole idea with this question, I'm just gonna ask it, and I just want to see how people interpret it. All right. That's I think that's it. We covered quite a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, it was great to talk to you.
Dude, this was super fun. Thanks for having me on.
All right, that just about does it for this first episode. So I hope you guys enjoyed that conversation and got something out of it. If you want to be on this show or you have any recommendations for people who would be interested in coming on and having a chat, let me know. Anyways, I'll catch you next time. Thanks for watching. Please stream my new single. Okay, bye.